Okay, well, I wanted to thank you for being on the Rooted Remedies podcast. And then the first, just general start off question I wanted to get to so people could get to know you better is your background and how you came to the soil food web and what you're up to today.
Let's see, my background. I could spend a lot of time there. Um,
I'd love to know it. Yeah.
yeah, okay. I was born in Minnesota, so every once in a while you hear the
Yeah.
Minnesota accent,
Eh?
don't you know? For sure. And I thought that was normal. All those very Scandinavian kinds of things that you don't get in the rest of the country. So. I know it surprised me one time when I was talking to my uncle in Ohio, on the phone, and we were talking about the weather, and I said, "Oh yeah, but it's just pouring outside. How can you be outside doing things?" And I'm sure he went, "Oh,
Yeah.
this, this chick ain't too bright."
Uh,
And he said, "Well, yes, Elaine, but it's not raining here. In fact, it's a nice sunshiny day. Well, then trade weather with me, please." So I grew up, my father was a professor at the University of Minnesota. He was head of the Department of Pharmacology and Physiology and Veterinary Medicine, which is always such as impressive, isn't that? The nice long title. So he was the head of the veterinarians uh, on campus, and he used to take me in to his lab, and I didn't want to go shopping with my mom and my two sisters, and it was like pulling teeth. Don't make me go and stand around and watch them while they're dresses, and who wants a dress? That's just ugh. And so finally my dad got used to, well, he would bring Elaine up to the school, and then my two sisters and mom could go shopping and not have a little whiny baby sort of thing, not enjoying herself.
are you the
So
baby? Are you the youngest of the three?
I'm not, I'm actually the middle kid, the middle
Ah,
child,
okay.
and that's usually the one who gets left out, because you have the two strong characters. And well, that's true for me. I'm a bit, I don't want to kind of overstep and say, look at all of the stuff that we've done, and you can do all of these wonderful things with it. I, you need to discover that for yourself. And if I make big frou-ha-ha about it, it just doesn't have the same punch. So I don't go out and promote myself much at all.
Yeah.
So I'm
I'm
kind of
number three. I'm number three of four, so I understand very well.
Yep. The limelight was on them, and I got away with everything. So I thought it was a perfect position. And so my dad would take me up to the university, and the first time this happened, he plopped me down in front of a microscope and had some petri dishes and some other stuff there, and said, "I want you to look at all of the things here and tell me about them." And so I said, "Well, but I don't know what this machine is that you've got in front of me. What's it for?" "Oh, this, yeah, yeah." And so he explained to me how to use the microscope. And I thought it was really cool, way cool, looking at all these bacteria and the fungi growing and the protozoa eating the bacteria and the protozoa being eaten by the nematodes, and what a I didn't understand much about what and why, other than now I could put names to them. And so I love doing that sort of thing, helping my dad with the animals, and holding a sheep in the right places to that it wouldn't react negatively to my dad poking a needle in its neck and pulling blood or something like that. So I remember a project that I did with my father, back in junior high, when we went out to the oh gosh, one of the major rivers in that part of the world, and every 5 miles took a reading of water, so I could take them back to the laboratory and do the chemical analysis And we could pick out just instantly which of the samples we took that were contaminated by, where they make clean water, supposedly. Right. It's we can pick out all these toxic chemicals in there. How dare you say that this is clean? Um, Maybe it's reduced as compared to the rest of the material in the waste, in waste treatment, but it was by no means something that you should put in water that children or even adults. So I got a good dose of toxic chemicals in the environment. And it's sad that it's taken us this long to realize that, this has been building over the years. That we waited to the point where there are going to be a whole lot of people die and die in an unpleasant fashion
Mm.
because we're just not willing to believe that we could have done anything like that. How would these companies ever, have release material that would kill other people? Don't they know that that's going to be bad for their image? Well, but the first three presidents of the company made gazillions of dollars, and it's the last person on that chain that has to deal with all of the things that the government is going
Recommendations.
to, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
all the money they're going to have to pay in fines. And yeah, but he wasn't the only person who did that horrible stuff. Can you go, take the money back from the people who are still spending it? So yeah, interesting dinner time conversations.
So just to give you a little bit of what I do, and not it's not a pitch, it's just what I like to do is help people with their children's oral health. And so what the reason I want you on, and the reason I feel like it's so critical is, I'm sure you know, healthy soils yield healthy foods. And so that's going to be the kind of the, maybe not the catalyst, I guess, depending on what angle you have, to oral health, because you address the microbiome in the gut, in the oral cavity, you address, I mean, vitality of the foods, you name it. So I guess my question to you, just to kind of situate a younger or newer parent who has no idea that food is related to oral health. Why isn't organic food enough, or is it enough, or how to navigate these things? So yeah, I would say start with what's the soil food web, what's the microbiome situation in the soil, and then how they can go about addressing that.
Yeah. So um, I've done my oh my gosh, I can step back a little bit further. When I was a senior in at college, I went down to the uh, Florida coast to take a class on marine organisms, and looking at the area nice and pristine. This is really the way all of the Florida coast used to look like this, and then you go to the place where um, it's toxic. There's all kinds of oil slicks. There's and you just again, it's another, what are we doing? Do
Right.
we just not understand? Or the people who point out problems like this, they're just brushed aside because, well, you're not making any money on that. But we are making money on where the plant is upriver, where we dump all of our toxic materials into the water and they wash out to the ocean, killing everything or a good amount of the of things. And we didn't care. We thought we had unending um, wildlife and wild lands that we, you know, 300 generations from now, not then we'll have to start worrying. We really needed to start the whole process long before I was a child, actually. So all of the uh, all of those negative factors going into your body. You're not capable of dealing with all those toxics in your body. It's having an effect. Maybe it didn't kill you this time, but it certainly left a whole bunch of holes in your body's ability to resist those
Mhm.
sorts of things, to resist the diseases and to resist where, like in your digestive system, in your gut, some of these compounds will open micro cleavages in that gut lining. And there's just all these toxic things pouring into your own bloodstream. And can you imagine what your plant is or what your body's going to be saying to you? It's like, I can't stand up anymore. You've got to go to bed and go to sleep. I can't take those kinds of foods because I just feel worse and worse and worse. I can't get outside and walk. I can't get out and running is all the negative is, they just build. And maybe it is because of that, because the first time you eat a toxic whatever. The the granolas that just got pulled off the market because they showed no questions asked that there were toxic materials in there.
Mhm.
And so when you consume that, you're you're not picking it up immediately right away. It's not until you've repeatedly and and the reverse is true. Once if you realize that problem and you start avoiding those toxic chemicals in the food, then you start to feel better. But I think it's only at the same rate as you started feeling bad. So
Yeah.
it's a long time getting back to conditions of health.
Mhm.
And it's like uh, when you start thinking of all of the cancers that we have, all of the illnesses that we have no way to fix them. There's no way known to deal with these materials. And when slowly but surely, as doctors have been doing studies, um, they're showing that if we make certain to that you're not eating anything toxic or nasty, you start to recover slowly but surely. People who are bald apparently can get the right kinds of foods, the right kinds of nutrients back into their bodies, and your hair starts growing again.
Yeah.
So um, the warning signals that you have to have. Yeah, so I started life in the ages where, 1950s, nobody thought that it was even remotely possible that the US government wouldn't protect their own citizens. But money talks louder
Yeah.
than what a human being is worth, apparently. So,
Yeah, I have a few just comments. I feel I feel a sense of urgency to get the word out on this stuff because what's happened over the course, you know, our children are less and less well. And so obviously you may see it around you, but because my children are almost 3 and almost 1, there's a lot of cumulative effects. And as you said, that first warning sign tends to be the mouth, ironically or not. So it'll be the first warning system. Hey, we're not right. There's either inflammation, there's either cavities, a myriad of things that show that very problem. Um, so yeah, and then I bring it up in other podcasts, but I wanted to I also don't like to say, oh, the government's terrible for X and Y reason. We know they are, but we know that there's an origin and there's a bottom dollar and there's I call it men in suits in a boardroom making decisions that
yeah,
have large
whereas
impacts. Yeah.
if we got rid of a lot of the legislation that's in place right now, and one of my favorite ones to pick on is where they made big companies to have the same rights as individuals.
Has to be united. Yeah.
That big company doesn't get the flying leap about about its grandmother or my grandmother or father or sister or brother. They don't care. They just want to make money. Where does that come into a system of freedom for the people who live in this kind of government? It's we, the people, have
Mm,
to get going and change that legislation. We've got to really change the United States, which results in changes in the entire world.
mhm.
It doesn't have to be, all, fire and, shooting people and bombs going
Oh,
off. It's we just have to realize that the chemical guys, the big agricultural um, um,
conglomerates, yeah.
conglomerates, all of those things. Well, and it's like you look at the men who own how many billions of dollars, and what do they do with those dollars? They sit and count them or something that but they're not out there doing much of anything, and
Right.
yet they're collecting gazillions of dollars. Why?
I tell
Why don't?
people, mostly my husband, excuse me, I tell, I don't know if you've ever gone to a state house to try and fight a bill or, protest any situation peacefully, obviously. It's futile. There's no point. In my case, for several bills, I've stayed at the state house or at the Capitol until 3, 4, 5 in the morning, only to see the bill pass unanimously in spite of testimony.
Mhm.
I live in Boulder, and so you've got bills here that the people vote against, and city council will turn around and just pass the measure. And so,
Because it's all
yeah,
those guys are connected by the money they're shoving under the table. They're not honest people. We're not voting for um, people in our government. They're supposed to be listening to us, the people of the United States. They're not, not now. Ever since
I don't
I
know.
really I view from that time when big companies could now be individuals, and they can accuse anybody of anything, and you've got to go um, to the legal world, and you've got to have 10 lawyers to help
Oh
you
yeah,
defend against you. What individual human being in the country has those kinds of resources unless you're fat cat,
right.
and you have the ability to fight with your 10 lawyers, their 10 lawyers, and all of the stuff with Trump just drives me crazy because, well, he's a good image of what we're going to have to live in if he gets elected again. Um, I just, whoa, scares the living daylights. I just might have to move to a different country. On the other hand, he didn't damage that much in his first 4 years. So maybe we shouldn't worry about it too much, but I don't
I
know.
feel that there's a lot of people on all ends that capitalize on the very thought, on the fear of, oh, that's going to be terrible. It's what I really want to get at is we vote 3 times a day, right? For every meal that we have. And so I wanted to kind of bring the point home. We have choices. Now, we don't have thousands of dollars to do any sort of litigation. I understand that justice does have a price tag, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've made it so.
We've made it so. We've made it so. And however slow, we can undo it.
Yeah,
So, what I want to get at is like, okay, because my angle is oral health and it is children, like you have the options to, and that's kind of where I want to go with you. Like, how do you navigate all of this stuff? Because it is scary. Any look into the EPA and you're just like, oh, it's a
uh,
bunch of clowns.
yeah,
Like,
exactly the term I was gonna say. Yeah, look at the clowns in there because ay, 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 can they not read the danger in front of their face? Well, it's offset by what came to them under the table.
right. It's not only do they not see it because on one off it's nothing, right? But they don't consider it cumulatively over the course of generations, over the course of years. And so for me, organic produce isn't enough anymore. And I find it ironic that they tell you now that growing a garden in your own house is not carbon neutral. Like it's actually worse to grow a garden in your own house.
Absolutely not true.
It's impossible that it's true. It is
Well,
impossible.
I guess if you take the chemical version of, if you accept that as somehow organic, it's not. And the organic world would never approve that. Um, you've put a garden in, food in, I have to make certain that there's no toxic chemicals left in that soil. So the easiest thing to do is make your own really good compost. And we teach people how to do that very easily. You don't have to go buy it from the local chemical shop. You want to be making your own, and then you can have a bunch of fun with your kids while you're making that because compost piles will take a lot of, you know, being beaten on or thrown up in the air, moved over, they're just the organisms are in there going, yeah, it'll settle down. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And so when you make certain that you compost in a way that you kill all the human pathogens, all the plant pathogens, they're all dealt with if you compost properly, and then you use that to cover the where the bed where you're going to put those plants in. Now, you're going to put those plants in the fall, or you're going to put those plants in the springtime. Well, we're coming up on springtime, so we'll plant them now. But we want to have enough time for all of that compost that we put on the surface of the soil to move in. All the microorganisms that live in that material will build structure for you. So the root systems of your plants will grow from this deep, 3 inches max, nothing more. And that's a sign of a sick soil. That's dirt. You're trying to grow your plant in dirt. And so now we want to get those microorganisms in there so they build the structure. So now you're going to be holding water. You're going to be holding on to all your nutrients. You've got the organisms to do all the nutrient cycling that your plants require, and more nutrients cycle through that material than any amount of inorganic fertilizers that you want to talk about. When you have only like 3 inches worth of soil at the top of your compacted um, rock-like dirt, um, you can't keep enough things here. Yeah, it's going to wash away. So if you put on inorganic fertilizers, where are you going to find that inorganic fertilizer the next time it rains? Down to the bottom of your property and washing out to the ocean through the canals that we so kindly built for all of that material to get exited from the system. So, homeowners have to understand that. People in their own gardens have to understand that they're paying the big chemical companies to give them things that when you put it on your soil, it just washes away the next time it rains or the next time that you irrigate backyard hose. It's a complete and total waste, except it hasn't stopped its damage. It's going to get out into the rivers and lakes and streams. It gets down to the ocean and it destroys every organism that it can see. And we end up with what is the diameter of the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. I remember when it was, 10 or 20 miles. Now we're
Mhm.
talking about 200 to 300 miles
Right.
where that dead zone, well, who's doing that any good with that? And it's not sequestering carbon. That we have to do something about getting all the right biology back into that water so it will decompose those toxic materials. And yeah, we're going to have a layer of interesting material on the bottom of the ocean, but at least it's on the bottom of the ocean, not killing the the animals, the marine life that accidentally go through that, and great, another dead body. So it's we have the way to deal with all of this. We know how to get all of this toxic material pulled inside the microorganisms and make sure that the toxic materials are broken down into carbon and hydrogen and oxygen so that there's nothing harmful left to hurt any organism. We've got to get the toxic compounds, if they're too high, like magnesium and zinc and boron and sulfur, nitrogen. If you get too much, it's going to kill your plants. And that's exactly what we're doing in a lot of cases. We think we're doing right. And of course, right there is the big chemical guys, and they're saying, oh, you did good. Yeah, all that nitrogen, it will be sequestered in carbon and growing. That's not how it works. That that is not chemistry. And yet, because they're fast talkers. Those they're
I call them
they're
the media sound bites. They know what sells, they know the buzzwords to use, and honestly, I've come to the conclusion how we treat the earth and how we treat soil is how we treat ourselves. And that goes for water and that goes for our air. Are we using synthetic chemicals to air fresheners? I mean, it's the simplest thing. Like, stop using the air fresheners, stop microwaving your food. These are simple things that I tell people that I just get looked at like, wow, you are from another planet. And I'm like, it's really not simple to thrive. It's, as you were explaining so subtly and obviously from a soil biology perspective, but when you were saying that, I was like, that's exactly how it is with humans. You have to slowly restore the damage that you've made, and you have to incorporate the stuff that's actually going to heal you and it's actually going to fix and bring balance back into the system.
Yep. And you have to be aware of how you maintain that balance.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to go, over Christmas break, you're going to go off your diet and you're going to, okay, fine. As long as in the next couple of months, you calm back down and you get the balance back and going. So all the rest of the way through the year, your 4th of July, when you're going to blow it again, you have the right to have special days, but then you really have to go back. You want to be there to watch your children grow and be successful. If you die, they're probably not going to be successful because mom wasn't there to do all the gazillion different things that moms do.
Yeah. Oh
And
man,
it's,
mom, grandma, I think I grew up with my great grandmother. And she was always sharing her knowledge, and so yeah, we're definitely cutting that short. We're reducing that lifespan, that ability to pass down the knowledge. And my family, my parents are from Havana, but my family is from a farmland in Cuba, and so things aren't so far off to me. Like, I don't feel so disconnected from the land and what should be happening, even though I feel that I am because I live in a city
yep.
and because I don't have any,
But you've been in the growing plants zone, if you will.
yes, yes.
It's not until later that you are now in urban, suburban kinds of situations. And if you're like me, you would really, well, I'm 71 years old and I'm not too interested in riding horses anymore because it's kind of painful after an hour and it takes a week to recover. So, yeah, I should have done all of that stuff earlier. So this is, like a clue to all of you listening that go out and have fun doing things with the family now because we have not set our environment up to to promote your continued health unless you know what you're doing and you can show other people what they're doing as well to reduce their longevity. You want them to increase their longevity.
Yes, yes. And taking care of your oral health is an assurance
Yes.
of longevity to an extent.
Yep.
So I'm
It's like
sure your kids are older, but you know the cliche, you go to the park, there's granola bar here, there's just crap, incessant crap all the time, and I want to get it across like they need to eat way less. Kids need to eat way less and because it's a burden on their liver, right, to digest all that food, but more importantly, all of the stuff that's in processed foods that is not contributing to their wellness. So I guess,
that there's a preservative in everything. What do
yeah,
you think preservative
exactly.
means?
Exactly.
And if you take a bite out of that candy bar, you're consuming all that preservative, and you are going to preserve your liver. You're going to preserve your kidneys. And what does a preserved kidney do? What does a preserved any organ in your body, when they're preserved, what good's it going to do?
Right.
Because you're dead.
Right.
And so getting those truths out in ways that people understand the danger, and then they want to know what they can do. Well, let's go to the closest garden and help them garden. When I was a kid, we all went around to the neighbors and helped them with their gardens. It was, kind of a party every weekend. And we lived right next to the university's trial fields, and they would let us have, 100 by 100 acre, no, sorry, not acre, 100 by 100 yards of place to grow anything we wanted to. And so we grew corn and asparagus and you name all the different, carrots, and it was wonderful because that stuff tasted so good. And then I remember my mom buying tomatoes at the grocery store, and we come back home and she slices up the tomatoes, and I just kind of I was uncouth as a girl. But it was horrible tasting. I didn't want to put that in my mouth. And to this day, I don't want to have anything to do with the non-organic tomatoes and veggies and things like that, because it's almost like that plant is trying to tell us that something's very wrong. You eat me, you are going to suffer a little bit fewer days that you're going to have a liver that's going to work right. So
And
how
I've
long do you
read
want your
that
teeth?
I've read that when you squeeze or juice or conventionally produced strawberries, that it's like palpable the amount of pesticides in the berries. That one berry you could spray, I don't know how many more square feet of crops in that one berry, and I was like, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
What are
Yep,
you doing to your digestive system?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, and how do we convince those people who have massive amounts of money that it's not going to do them any good, because they're going to die along with the rest of us. They're breathing toxins in the air. They're breathing, um, unless they're paying for all organic or all regenerative ag or,
Well, the royal family has a dedicated biodynamic farm, and they eat consistent, like they subsist off of that. So I find that curious. I'm like, oh, well, of course you have your biodynamic farm. And I know that the royal family, I say that because they're easy to point at and say, yeah, you
yeah.
guys are this, but they work exclusively with homeopathists and all these things that I'm just like, okay, so the normal layperson goes and eats your conventionally produced foods, goes and sees, I call them the conventional dentists and practitioners of just, yeah, conventionalism and not critical thinking.
hmm that they use in their toothbrush and their
Yeah.
toothpaste. Those are toxic chemicals. They're washing around inside their mouths, and so you rinse out your mouth. You're still going to be consuming some of those toxic materials. What do you think that does to your esophagus and to your stomach and to your kidneys and to your all your organs? You don't, we're not taught that it follows right through your whole body, and some of it comes out the other end.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any input in terms of just industrialized food overall? Like not organic is fine, but I'm finding now as I've grown in the last 10 years of, growing food and growing plants and stuff, like it's just bigger. Like even the organic stuff, every in Colorado specifically, everything organic is from either Mexico or Colorado, or not Mexico. Yeah, Mexico and California. And so I'm like, okay, that also has to be compromised in some sort of way because they only care about the bottom dollar. And because I don't have the ability to vet every single place that I go or that I buy from, it's like, well, they're using the industrial lights, so they're not following the natural light cycles. Um, and the other day I was at the store and I saw a butternut squash that was just this big, and I was like, okay, clearly that's not going to taste like anything.
Right. Absolutely no
Number
flavor
one,
to it at all. It's just kind of,
right. But it's organic and people were scooping it up, and I was like, what do I do? Like, what do
it's
I
empty
do?
calories kind of,
Yeah,
it's you're being, brought to pick this up and buy it because it looks better, but it isn't. Go by
right.
the taste, go by the smell. All of those things we have to learn. Bring your bricks meter with you, and squeeze a little
I
out
did.
and go, oh, there's nothing in there.
Right.
Um, Yep. So it almost requires that you have some kind of community-wide production of food, because
Yeah.
no one person can really be in our society today. You can't be gone every single day. Or even part days. There's sometimes you just can't be there. And so having the whole community work on that garden, um, and then you split up the proceeds based on how many days were you actually here?
Mm.
Okay, so you get X number of pounds of this, that, and the other thing. Um, or you're alone and you just figure you're going to lose a few things to the fact that you couldn't come out and get everything watered on that particular day. Or you put your kids to work on it when they get big enough.
Yeah. Um, I these the guys in suits are they're pretty astute because now I don't know if you do any social media. I've minimized it to just production of content that I'm interested in and consuming of product or content that I'm interested in. I've taken a sabbatical off for 2024 because it's gonna be a wild one. And but I don't know if you've seen they now are throwing the hounds on regenerative agriculture and how it's actually not good for the soil. And I'm just like, people, take just stop and think for a second. Regenerative, it's in the word. How is it? How I don't mean to be attacking anybody, but the vegans that are so concerned with the meat and I'm just like, okay, to produce your soy burger is very, very intensive agriculturally. It's not just you save cows, you're killing beneficial bacteria, you're killing the nematodes, you're killing all of these things that need to exist, that they need to thrive. And I feel that humans have, like I say, we are at the top of the food pyramid because we figured out a few things. And so one of them is in our evolution with animals and with plants that we have figured out that can be mutually beneficial. So it's crazy to me that now regenerative agriculture is in question and I don't know what to think about it.
I've missed the questioning, I guess, because we, with Soil Food Web Incorporated, we're the research end of the two companies that the other one is Soil Food Web School,
Oh, okay,
where
okay.
we teach people to make really good compost. And our compost passes all of the um, different states have different requirements. And because if you somebody wants to take all your really good compost, you just say, oh, no, it's a soil amendment. There are no rules on soil amendments. So you buy what you want, but we always say you need to check and make sure that the label was on and it said that this is biocomplete compost and here are the levels that it has to be above. And if you look then in your own microscope, if you want to go, learn how to use a microscope or teach one of your kids to use a
Yeah.
microscope, um, they can do a look at that biology and say, yeah, it's all there, Mom. It's even more. And so use that to immediately get the biology back into the soil and start, getting good flavor in your foods, and know that it's nutritionally the best we can do.
Mm,
Um, so we have a whole, here are the steps that you follow, and within 1 to 2 years, you're going to have all that biology back in the soil, and you can start building compost for other people, because you can always, if you're missing something, you can always go back to the compost in that you've put in the garden. You haven't seen any diseases, you haven't seen any pests, you haven't seen any need for inorganic fertilizers. Your plants are beautiful. Um, so there's a source there's a source of really good biology. And can we get everybody on the planet turned around and start doing this work?
mm.
Um, and it's coming along. It's definitely doable. So,
Yeah, I find the more I look into it, and so I've recently started this podcast, and so I find that the people I talk to are actually excited. Where I've gone through a phase of a bit of anger, first disappointment, and then like, oh, it's over. Like this is
uh,
screwed. And then now I find people are actually quite optimistic. And the beauty, and I can equate it to myself because it it doesn't take that long to see regeneration, and it doesn't take that long to see improvement. So yes, I applaud the optimism.
well, I've been working on this for the last 40 years.
Yes, yes.
And I remember when I started my PhD work at Colorado State University, right up the road from
Yeah,
you. Um, then I wanted to work on the organisms in the soil, because there was like no reports. There was no, what do bacteria and fungi and protozoa and nematodes and microarthropods and earthworms, what do they do? Why are they there? And my major professor said, well, I think you should go around to all of the different soil professors in the college, and ask them what they think of your research project. And so with trepidation, I don't like talking to people who at the time in my life was like, oh, they're a professor. I should
yeah,
kneel and kiss the end of their cloak or something, And that's, yeah, well, that was me, uh, kind of shy. And went around to all of them and handed them a copy, and they kind of, leafed through it for a few minutes. It all would just then close the surface of my um, book and hand it back to me, and then they would say, um, I think I really have to counsel you to let you know that um, you're not going to be able to get a job after finishing your graduate education if you do a research project like that. And I was like, well,
love it.
why is that? I mean, it's important to know what's going on in the soil. It's got to be affecting something down there. What is the something it's affecting? Oh, no, no. All those organisms in the soil, they're just there. They don't do anything. And it's like, uh, bacteria have been around on this planet for the last 4.5 billion years. And you're telling me something that Mother Nature has put up with for 4.5 billion years isn't doing anything? That's ridiculous. So, and fungi are the same way, and protozoa are the same way. They're doing something, but what is the something that they're doing? And so came back from all these interviews, just kind of like, where am I?
Yeah,
Uh, this is not the place I want to get taught anything that they might have to say, because it's all wrong. Um, Went to my major professor and he said, so what do you think? I'm glad I found you as a major professor, because the rest of those people, I guess they've been bought. by the chemical companies. They aren't looking at the facts that it's rare and few to find those papers at that time on what was really going on. One of the papers I wrote up myself was we were looking at, gosh, 12 different toxic chemicals that we use as to kill weeds or to kill disease-causing bacteria or fungi, all of these different things. And we looked at 12 of them, all of them within the first year of application to the soil had almost completely destroyed all the biology in the soil. So they're trying to farm with dirt. So of course you've got to buy toxic chemicals. You've got to buy the inorganic fertilizer. You have to buy the pesticides. You got to buy the weedicides. You got to, and so no wonder farmers were poor. They couldn't make ends meet and they'd lost their farms because they couldn't they couldn't get enough money because they couldn't afford all the toxic chemicals and pests and all of those things. So who bought their land when they left? Yeah, all these wonderful big money chemical guys.
Yeah, I tell my husband it starts with the parent. It starts with the parent or the at least the individual consumer to stop buying what they produce. And you'll see in an I feel, and this is again my personal opinion, like in an ironic twist of events, they'll be the ones championing holistic land management. And if my hope, right? I'm like, yeah, they're gonna turn around and they're gonna see people aren't buying what they're producing anymore. Let's shift and
Yeah.
let's go back to the land. And then we can sell them, hey, our bone, powdered bone mixes, and here you go, and apply it to. And I'm just like, I hope I'm right.
Please come soon. Oh, dear Lord, please listen. We
Yeah.
need to have them, their families, their children, and hopefully it will happen sooner than later, where we break the hold of those big chemical companies. I think we really have to change um, the laws and rules of the US where you can't accumulate that kind of money. They've got to go in and find where the real nexuses are and take that away from those.
I feel a little also like, if, thinking back to your story at school or at university where the other professors were bought or potentially not even thinking critically, that's a huge piece for me. Like, at least, what I want to impart is have the eyes, have the ability to really look at what's in front of you and make the best decision. And so, just bringing it back to food, because that's, what we're both interested in, like, no, if it's in a package with pretty bright colors and 20 ingredients, it's not food. Number
It's lot,
one, that it's
yeah.
not food.
What's inside there?
Right,
Toxic chemicals coating all of the food. It might actually be wonderful food, but how do you get to it?
right.
You got to consume that deadly outer wall.
Yeah, and so if your experts, the ones that we look up to are captured or are whatever words we want to use, and they give us the media sound bites, I feel like we're just spinning around in nothing and not addressing the real problem. And so yeah, if it's in a package, it's not real. That's kind of where I go. I come back to that. And if your water comes out of the pipe, like and if it's municipal water, like think about that. Just think about it. And really, so where could someone go now? Like I'm curious, what are you excited about for this year? What are you motivated? Like what keeps you going? Because it can get dark and it can get like
But
uh
it's getting lighter. I mean, because in comparison, now you go to the university folk and they're all on our side. They're in their own life. They've tested and they've discovered that we're right. So more and more of the university folk, they're definitely not all of them yet, but that's what we got to work on in part. We also have to go to the legislative people in our, and it's just like the how the professors were when I first started investigating whether it was true or not that these organisms do something, because the university folk were being getting paid under the table. The only way you could get money is to um for the
Grants.
for the grants. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, have you sold your soul? Then you can have this grant money. And
Right.
then now you can stay at that university, you can stay at that college, because as a professor, you have to have um, a way to show that you're part of the
Establishment.
professorial, yeah, the establishment. You're a prophet, not a prophet. I'm close, but no banana. Professor. There we are. So they had to have that money. Well, so over the last 40 years, we've been able to get um, cause the escape from the trap that many of those professors had to deal with. As soon as you start taking money under the table from someone, you are not a free person anymore.
Right.
So we had to get rid of that round, those age groups where they were already indoctrinated, and the new kids on the block when they came in were, oh no, I won't take that. Well, that's what the legislators are right now, because they sit down and they start taking money from under the table. How do we get people to realize that they've been put into a trap and they got to get out? And can we help them get out? So, we need to have funding resources that can do away with the chemical companies. Um, so there's hope.
Yeah.
We will do this. What are the specific things that we need to do in the legislatures to make those people realize that they're voting to destroy human beings on this planet? Mother Nature doesn't need us.
No.
We
She will
need
make it.
Mother Nature, but uh,
She's gonna be fine.
she's going to be fine. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what she comes up with the next time. But it's kind of like the dinosaurs back in the Jurassic era, where they ruled the earth. But when Mother Nature finally said, "What do I need you for?" She happily changed the weather, and all kinds of things happened, and we
Yeah.
started over again with little rats and mice and things like we are descended from.
Yeah.
So no wonder we behave the way we do. So I would really like to see human beings stay alive. I would like to not have to go through another round where things just got blasted and then Mother Nature starts over again.
I always say that the bacteria take 20,000 years to go from point A to point B, and if they need it again, they'll do it again, no problem. I'm just like, it's up to us, the talking monkeys. If we don't
Yeah.
figure it out, it's fine.
Yep.
Well,
She'll try another pathway because we obviously are not doing what she requires. Um, can we wake enough people up soon enough, fast enough, so that we can really change everything?
beautiful.
So I'm hoping
Yeah.
we've got to do the work, but it's come a long way
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
from where it was 40 years ago.
So if someone, let's just say, had never heard of soil food web, that has no idea that food affects their life, how could they start to, where could they look? Um,
You
just
know,
to
I'd
kind of
want
see what, yeah.
I'd want them to come and look at different kinds of ways of raising crops and talk to people, and as they're walking through the chemical fields and they're starting to sneeze and they're having an allergic reaction to all the toxic chemicals and they can't breathe, they're going to be leaving pretty fast, and they're, wow, what was in there? I don't ever want to be in a field like that ever again in my life because I'm not sure I would be able to survive. Um, they they need some firsthand demonstrations. And so that's why we always start working with people that have land and we can make the compost so that they can make their own compost in a year or two, a year or two to get things back out into the soil that will get the results. Do you want weeds? Okay, you have mostly bacteria. You don't need the fungi. You don't need the nematodes that eat the fungi, but you will only be able to grow weeds. Okay, not working for you? Okay, how do we move you from barely out of the dirt situation? How do we move you along? We put on more fungal foods. So we start having both bacteria and fungi present in that soil. And now we're going to be growing a whole bunch of other things that are not weeds. So how do you get rid of weeds? You stop feeding them. So go on to the next stage, and then you'll go to the next stage. And so we'll make some beautiful tomatoes and, really wonderful pumpkins and all of the, where we're 50% fungal, 50% bacterial. Go on to the next. If I think most of my farm would consist of that veggies, really wonderful veggies to have in, just the greatest flavors. But I want now, I want a few berries. I want to have something that I need to have a 1-to-1 ratio, maybe a 2-to-1 ratio of fungi to bacteria. So I'm going to grow a whole bunch of blueberries, strawberries, whatever your heart's desire is for that stage. And then I need some trees in there because I like nuts. I like orchard fruits, things like that. And then I want a little bit of plants that will produce firewood for me. So, I'm not going to cut down the main stem anymore. I'm going to be taking what falls from up above. So I've got my old growth forest. I've got every stage of succession all the way through to the very beginning. And then if a disturbance comes along, so we have a flood that goes right through the middle of the farm or something, I have those things that will immediately, right now, be able to put the right balance of bacteria and fungi back into my soil, and I'll still be able to grow the plants so that I don't starve to death come wintertime.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you.
So does that come close to anywhere to you what you think of as the perfect world?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was curiously, I was with someone earlier a few weeks ago on a podcast, and I was like, I just want to go buy my own land and milk my cows for raw milk. And she's like, don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean don't do that? I should do that. That is utopic for me. Yeah.
Having animals in the system, just you're not going to have animals, packed into but that's what a lot of people think, you're just going to have a 10-acre area and it's going to be every foot is going to be covered by animals. No, I don't need that many animals to eat through the wintertime. So, and I'm not going to have steak every day. I'd like I'd like a lamb and maybe a little, something else. So, yeah, it's just pure heaven when you have enough people to help, which you should have if you've got a family. You,
We're meant to be in community in all for everything. For
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yep. We need that, response back that I'm doing a good job and we're doing it well, or somebody comes walking through the town or village and you see that bright, dye on his clothes. How did you do that? Where did you get that from? What flour am I supposed to? Oh, all I have to do is put a little baking powder in when the iron had, okay, now I've got nice bright clothes. Yeah. So yeah, we need to be in community, definitely. And the academic world for me was not that was not the community I wanted at that time. Now, today, I think I'd have a grand time going to school because more of the professors are really convinced that they know and understand that this is better for them.
It was not the academy you wanted, but it was what you needed.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
imagine? Yeah.
yep.
I tell people all the time, when I took my daughter to the dentist, has she been like, "Oh, everything is great. You're doing great." I would have been nothing would have happened, but because she was like nonchalant about everything, I was like, "Oh my God, I have to research. I have things to do." So yeah, absolutely.
Don't don't answer me in an off the hand, stop fussing about something that you can't understand. And I can too understand it. So,
Yeah. All right. Thank you
okay.
so much. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I'll be looking, you'll be putting this out you
Yeah.
send it past us so that we
I
can
can
take a
send
look
it
at it.
to, yes, absolutely. To Katie, right? I should send it to Katie.
Um, Probably to paid.
Oh, Kate, I'm sorry. I read it as Katie.
Katie, yeah, yeah.
She probably gets
Yeah,
that a lot. Okay, sorry.
yeah, he does.
Oh, he does.
CAYB.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Katie.
KD. And so I can perfectly understand how you can make Katie out of that, but you did see the kind of blank look on my face of
Yeah. Who's Katie?
Katie. Oh, of course. Utah, you're asking Cade. Um,
Ooh.
yeah. So it's Cade at Soil Food Web. Soil Food Web. Yeah, I think it's a institute. So
Okay. I have
uh,
it. I have it. It's
you
fine.
do? Okay. Because what memory?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. So you have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care. Ciao.